Hello, my fellow YouTubers. This is Roy back again. Let's check out and see if it gives it any resistance. I really didn't turn the wheel fast. Let's turn this down. Turn that off. Feels like it's moving nice, like real nice. Different sound. Smooth though. Smooth. Everything's smooth. This thing is flying. That's some fast stuff going on there, gents. It's got some speed. It's amazing how fast this goes. I am blown away how accurate this is. I love I can adjust it. So, I just ordered some 16 gauge wire, 10 pounds. And this is what I'm thinking. In the resistance, there's 1,265 feet and 10 pounds. But the chart that I was looking at goes up to 1,000 feet. So in 1,000 feet, there's 4.1... Let's take a peek. It's 4.16 gauge wire. 4.016 of resistance. So if you take that, say if we want to use, what I want to do is use DC coming in. And, well, I guess I could use the Variac and rectify it and go that route. But no, but I'll start off with DC and say 24 volts, but I'll use this resistance wire and I can knock it down, say, to 6 volts or 0 volts, so by the resistance. So I'll use the resistance and go up to 24, which is really more than 24 because they're both like 13.3 or 13.3 fully charged deep cycle batteries. So that's 26.6. That's some good voltage, but I can increase it if I wanted to with a Variac coming in from AC. But regardless what direction or what we post videos on experimenting, is was concerned on what wire I should wrap brand new. I'm not going to use the 22 gauge wire. That'll be used on a different PMH to where we're looking thinner wire, higher voltage. Remember that. So we're looking at what the wire's capabilities of amps are, and so we're going to use Lenz law, and pretty much just take the voltage, 24 volts, and divide it by 4.016, and it's I think it came I think it came out to, I didn't write it down, but like 8 amps. Not enough. So remember, 12 gauge wire, 14 gauge wire, 16 gauge wire. So how many amps can 16 gauge wire hold without getting too hot versus 14 gauge or 12 gauge? Well, 12 gauge we know in our house, as well as 14 gauge. I think 14 gauge was 15 amps and 12 gauge is 20 amps that they allowed. That doesn't, we're pulsing it, yada yada, so we can stretch it out a little bit. But so I like to get 24 amps down with 24 volts. So that means if I take this and divide it by 4, that means I can wrap 4 coils individually, 1, 2, and then another PMH, 3, 4 out of one spool of wire. And then that means I would have 1 amp draw. So if I'm using 24 volts, I'm pulling 24 amps. If I'm pulling 12 volts or 13 volts, I'm using 13, but I can vary it with the resistance wire. So we'll use the Sweet 16 wire. We'll get 2 PMHs out of it, which is cool. And we'll know that the coils won't heat up. I just have to figure out how many turns is going to get me. See, 1,000 feet, so that'll be 250 feet will get me the 1 ohm that I'm looking for resistance. So, with that being said, I no sense in doing a live video tonight, but I am now proud to say my beautiful mechanism could be taken apart, and we could write that off. But there's something I did learn out of this, is that encasing, I did some experiments with it, with encasing around the coil and kind of see if it was more efficient. And the reason this wasn't because it was dynamic, because the core wasn't touching the outside rim in order to make 2 poles on the top and the core itself over here. So it didn't really work, but I'll break it free, still use the pole. I have the other PMH. Then I'm going to have these go around the whole wheel. And like Ed says in magnetic current, he says, my best wheel, let's break that out. Where is that at? My best wheel, he says. Here we go. My best wheel. That's what he said. Let's see what he says on his best wheel. My best wheel. Hey, you see that scar? Goes from all the way up there, all the way down, all the way up there. I held on the roll bar as I was rolling over in my damn go-kart. What a fool that was. Don't do that, guys. Keep your hands in. That's all I'm going to say. I would have been fine. Fine. I was reading right here where Ed says, now you see that soft iron has a lot to do make magnetic currents. Now about the generator. In first place, all currents are alternating. To get direct current, you use a commutator, transformer, and generators of any description are making the currents in the same way by filling the coil's iron core with magnets and letting the iron core push them out into the coil. So very important, the reactance off of the iron into the inductor is very important. Copper is like really good. Connect the battery with the electric magnet and the field magnet now. So he's calling that a field magnet. So now we're going to go back to where he says right here. Now you and the field magnet are a generator. So here you go. Suppose you had a wheel and many coils around the wheel turning. So PMH is all the way around. So we're just going to go all the way around. So when you go to turn the wheel, the magnetic field itself on the wheel, which the stator here on the wheel is going to want to lock itself straight to each PMH. If you have it like this, it'll pull itself. So one does it on its own. You can imagine having them all around. So that's where Lenz's law will kick in. But we'll do some studies with that and see how that's going to affect things here. So back down here, he says that now you and the generator. Suppose you had a wheel with many coils around the wheel turning, then you would be making all kinds of light. Do not make the machine. I already have an application for patent in the patent office. I made 10 different machines to make magnetic currents, but I found this combination between field magnets and coils. So he already described up here what a field magnet was. All right, he says up what we just said about you're going to use a coil.